Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week I've got another fun conference presentation to share with you. This time from SEO on the Beach in Spain. Last week, I was lucky enough to be invited to speak at SEO on the Beach, a ridiculously fun conference literally held on the beach in Spain, about 45 minutes north of Valencia. I've heard amazing things about this event for years, but it was so much more awesome than I expected. I only had 20 minutes to present, but I rocked an awesome presentation about using a customized local SEO audit to close more business. Check it out. How a local SEO mini audit doubled our close rate. I'm Greg. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at SearchLab, but you probably already know that because you're watching my video series right now. But for those of you that haven't seen it before, this is an episode of Local Search Tuesdays, my weekly local SEO tip video series where I also share full local SEO conference presentations whenever I speak at conferences. And this is a fun picture of me speaking at MozCon back before COVID. So now it's a little weird because I don't even have tattoos on my left arm, but it's a fun photo, so I like to use it. And I do get to speak at a lot of conferences, and unfortunately, some of those conferences in the US are pay to play. And since you have to buy a sponsorship to get a speaking slot, companies will usually send salespeople instead of actual conference speakers, and they're a bit painful to watch on stage. They stand locked behind the podium. They don't really move around much. They talk in a really fast monotone. It's really hard to understand what they're saying. And even worse, they don't have a designer work on their slides. So there's not really anything on screen. There's no photos. There's no colors. There's no design. It's just a plain white background with Arial font in black. And they pack every slide with bullet points and just read bullet points the entire time, which not only is that not fun to watch, they've done scientific studies that prove that bullet points kill kittens. So today we're going to keep all the kitties safe. And you probably, hopefully, noticed the movie reference there at the beginning. I am a movie nerd. I love to share my love of movies with my love of digital marketing. So every time I do a presentation, there is a movie theme. Today's theme is science fiction films. So I have at least one movie for every year in the last 50 years in every presentation that I do. But this time we're going back 57 years. Because come on, if we're doing sci-fi movies, I've got to have all of the Planet of the Apes films in there. So there is attribution to the side. Not only will you learn some awesome stuff about digital marketing and local SEO, you'll have a kick-ass list of movies to watch later. So let's get this going. Are you here because you need a hand closing more clients? Do you spend too much time looking up at other agencies that rank higher in search results? It's really hard to figure out how to sell to customers. It's a tough puzzle to crack, and too many agencies or freelancers like to skate along with minimal effort and rely on referrals only. And if you're not really putting effort into trying to sign up new clients, you're going to be virtually invisible because you blend into the background noise. And if you blend into the background noise, you really are basically invisible to potential customers. But I don't want you to lose your head. I'm here today to help you figure out how you can close more business. I'm going to help you dig through the giant pile of crap that's out there that tells you how to do demos and show you something that's more effective. It's almost like a cheat code into Google's matrix. So let's get this going. It's important to understand that there's a different algorithm at play for local search results. Google actually has multiple algorithms, and it will determine which algorithm gives the best answer based on the search intent of the query that's entered. So if you're targeting the local algorithm, you need to learn to do local SEO instead of traditional SEO. So if you're not familiar with it, I'm not going to cover it today, but I do have a really awesome free course on the Bright Local Academy that gives you an intro to how local SEO works and what you should do. You can check it out at that video link right there. But today I'm going to talk about how a small local SEO audit that I created really changed the trajectory of our agency. Now, there are these small automotive conference kind of meetings for 20 dealers called 20 group meetings. And I've been speaking at these for years. And I created an SEO scoring matrix back in the day that was really just a small SEO audit in an Excel spreadsheet. And I would evaluate all the sites of the attendees, and I would know what each element point value was worth. And I would just enter the points manually. And at the end of my session, I could point out, hey, buddy, you've got the best SEO in the room. And sorry, Mr. Over here, you've got the worst SEO in the room. And it was a fun little thing. And it was a massive hit with attendees because it put into actual practice the things that I had just spoken about during my session. But a few years back, one of the guys that I do a lot of these 20 group meetings with had an interesting idea. He said, what if we updated it so it made a bit more sense for people to use themselves? And then you could do your presentation the first day, and the second day we could do a workshop, and they could actually cross-score each other's businesses. And I thought that was a really great idea. So I redesigned the matrix to make it easier for absolute noobs that don't know anything about digital marketing to understand what's going on. So then we used it in the workshop, and the auto dealers at this event were able to score each other's sites. And it was an even bigger hit than it had been before. It really resonated with the dealers that were there because it was so easy to understand and so easy to really drive home the important elements of SEO that I talked about the day before. And we even had a couple of dealers sign up with us at that event because they loved the self-use matrix that much. And we typically didn't get that many dealers signing up when I spoke at these events because I was just there to help. I wasn't there to sign up business. So after the feedback from these dealers, I had the idea that we should try using it when we did a demo call with potential clients that were thinking about working with us. So that allowed us to change what we did. Instead of giving a boring generic pitch that's the same generic pitch that any agency would give to any client, we could talk about specific opportunities for improvement that we found. So here are the problems we saw, and here are the things that we would do to correct those problems. Immediately, our close rate on demo calls more than doubled, and it has stayed at that same higher rate even to this day. Because it looks like we spend a lot of time doing an audit on the website, but in reality, it only takes about 15 minutes at the most to complete doing the matrix scores. Now, I purposefully designed this audit to evaluate basic tactics for SEO, not SEO strategy. And most people will use those words interchangeably, but there's a really important difference between the two words. Strategy is the direction that you're going, and tactics are the individual steps that you take to get there. If the matrix was too strategy focused, it would be really easy for someone to take those audit results back to their current partner and have that partner argue about the results and say, oh, you don't have to pay attention to that. They don't know anything about you. Our strategy is on point. Like, just ignore it. It's way too generic. Think about the things that you would say if you had a client give you a HubSpot site creator, for example. You'd tell them to completely ignore it because it didn't apply. But since it evaluates really basic local SEO tactics that anyone that knows SEO would agree are important to have on your digital footprint, then it's really hard for any business owner to argue with the results. Plus, the strategy isn't going to matter anyway if you don't have the right basic tactics in place. So, for example, one of the questions in the matrix audit asks if a city is included in the title tag on the home page. It doesn't even matter which city is there. Someone in Dallas, Texas could put Honolulu, Hawaii, and it would still give full credit because it's only evaluating the basic tactic of whether or not a city is present. Now, we do have multiple versions that we have grown this into over the years because we have certain verticals that we work with more often than others. So we've created vertical specific versions so that we can score things a little more accurately. But in general, the matrix evaluates the 4 areas that influence the local search visibility of any individual business. And the scores from those 4 areas are then weighted to approximate the importance of each area to Google's local algorithm. And then you add those 4 scores together and you get a total point value anywhere from 0 to 100 points. And 100 points is effectively impossible. It's pretty unlikely that everything is going to be perfect. So really, you want to look for a score between the upper 60s and mid 80s because that shows you that the right basic tactics are in place. In fact, the highest score that we've ever seen was an 83.6, and that was one of our own clients. If we take our own clients out of the mix, the highest client or non-client score we've ever seen was a 65.2. But you can also lose points. There are certain elements that if it's likely or definitely hurting your visibility because you're doing something wrong, then you'll lose either full points or portions of points So the lowest score we've ever seen was a whopping negative 71.5. And that guy was spending $5,000 a month on SEO. Since we started using the updated version in the spring of 2022, we've scored over 1,500 websites, and the average score is only 18 points out of 100. That's how awful most people are looking. Now, the 4 sections break down like this. The on-site section evaluates the content of the website and how it's optimized, and it includes a check of the homepage, the About Us page, and one primary product or service page. We also have additional pages added in the vertical specific versions because there are certain pages that you have to have if you're a car dealer that you wouldn't have if you weren't a car dealer. And then we have the link section that evaluates the number of websites pointing links to the site that we're evaluating. And then we have the Google Business Profile section that checks out the GBP and how it's optimized. And then we have the review section that evaluates the reviews and responses to reviews on both Google and Yelp. Now, the reason we look at Yelp is because in the United States, if someone is looking up directions on Apple Maps, the reviews that are displayed in Apple Maps come from Yelp and not from Google. So if you're outside of the United States, those Apple Maps reviews could come from several other possible websites. So the easiest thing to do is do a search on Apple Maps for a generic term that relates to that client's vertical, and you'll see the reviews that show up and it will show you the source website. So pay attention to whichever site is powering those review stars, and then just update the Yelp section of the matrix to evaluate whatever that review site is instead, like TripAdvisor or whatever it might be. Every element in the matrix or the audit is labeled as a question with a drop-down associated that includes the possible answers to the questions. Once you select one of the answers from the drop-down, the score is automatically assigned. Now, we mostly score on factors that influence your visibility, ranking factors. You do this right, you're going to rank better. But we do also check several conversion factors. Those conversion factors won't really affect your visibility, but they will affect how well you're going to convert if you're showing up in search results or if someone's on your site. So the first page of this matrix file displays the scores, and it can show multiple sites together. So it looks something like this. And then each individual tab in the sheet displays the scoring details for the individual businesses that we're checking out. And there is also a notes section in each individual tab so that we can mention obvious strategic errors that we found that they may not have lost points for, but should still be evaluated or still be noticed as we talk to those potential clients. So today, we score every potential client before we do a demo call. And then during that demo call, half of the call covers the audit and what we found, and then the other half covers what our solution would be. Potential clients love it because it's obviously a manual evaluation of their digital footprint. Most people don't trust the HubSpot site graders or the Semrush site graders because they understand that they're incredibly generic, and then they're also bogged down with a lot of SEO jargon, like they're going to tell you you've got too many characters in your title tag, which the general public doesn't even understand why that matters. So then after the call, we're going to send those scores of the matrix to the prospect so they have them in hand whether they work with us or not. We also make sure to mention that a good score doesn't mean that you're automatically going to have better visibility or more traffic. It just means that the right tactics are in place so that then your strategy is going to matter in the first place. It's also a pretty awesome internal tool for our team as well, because it's always completed by a senior level SEO team member so that when a new client starts working with us, they already have a completed matrix that was completely filled out by that senior team member. So it's an awesome guide for our team to help prioritize the things that they should do in the initial optimization of the website. So at the beginning of this year, I actually switched the matrix from being an Excel doc to a Google Sheet file. And the reason I did it is because AppScripts let us do even more awesome stuff with the matrix. So I want you to be able to check it out for yourself. I've given you 2 links here. One is the generic version that works with any type of local business, and the other shows you how we've adjusted that matrix to include specific elements that matter to one particular vertical. So you can download and make a copy of either one of those and check it out and use it for yourself. Also, there's a really cool thing that I've figured out how to do where you can create a roll-up report of every matrix. So if you open my Google Sheet cheat sheet at the link right there, the final tab in the cheat sheet shows you how you can set up some app scripts. And if you save every copy of this audit into a single Google Drive folder, you'll get a roll-up sheet that shows you the results of everything that you've ever done. Now, I know I went really fast and talked through a lot of things, so hopefully nobody's head exploded. And for those of you that haven't seen Scanners, the guy's head literally explodes. But the truth is out there about how you can use an audit to close more business. I've now given you the key to success so that you can break out of your shells and do better marketing and close more customers so that your agency or your freelance business will live long and prosper. That was how a local SEO mini audit doubled our close rate. There is my email address. If you have any questions, please send them over. I am happy to answer anything. Also, if you'd like a copy of the slides, I can send you a copy of the slides. And as a special bonus at the end, there is a list of all the movies by order of release date. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the whole thing. That's definitely all the time we have left for this week's episode, so you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesday.